Hi, my name is Rebecca, and for the past 6 weeks, I've been following a really strict carnivore diet, which is eating exclusively animal products. I wanted to do this because I'm really interested in all things about health and fitness and nutrition, and I've heard a lot of polarizing things about this diet. So nothing that I say in this video is intended as medical advice. This is all just my personal data, opinions, and experiences. People that like the carnivore diet say that it gives them better sleep, they have more energy, they have less brain fog, and they lose a lot of weight. And people that are against the carnivore diet say that it's too much saturated fat, which raises your cholesterol and therefore your risk of heart disease, and also that it's too restrictive. So I started this diet on Ash Wednesday, February the 14th, and I'm finishing it today, Saturday the 30th, Holy Saturday. And for the past 6 weeks, I've been pretty meticulously collecting data on my body composition. I took blood marker data and some subjective data as well. So I'm going to share that with you today. So first, here's some demographic data. I'm 28 years old, female obviously, have a pretty active lifestyle, 5 to 10 hours a week. My BMI when I started was 24, and I don't have any previous medical history of diabetes, cancer, heart disease, anything like that. Throughout the 6 weeks, these were the average stats on the diet. So I was eating around 1,400 calories a day, which is very low. Average number of grams of protein per day, 154. Fat was around 80 grams, with about 36 grams of those per day being saturated fat. And then average carbs per day around 12. And then average energy expenditure, according to an app, was 2,200 calories. So a pretty big calorie deficit. I was very strict with this, and I did not cheat on this at all. I was under 20 grams of carbs every single day that I did this. Okay, so I got some subjective data first. So sleep, a lot of people say they get better sleep on the carnivore diet. I didn't really experience this. It stayed about the same. Usually get 5 to 6 hours of sleep at night, plus a 20 to 90 minute nap in the afternoon. That didn't change. However, I did experience some really cool, long, vivid dreams that I remembered like very clearly. Like I was experiencing some like IMAX movies while I slept. So that was pretty neat. And so I gave that a 10. This is just my interpretation of the results. I'm happy with that. I'm glad I didn't get less sleep. So that's good. Energy levels, a lot of people also say they feel more energized when they're on the carnivore diet. I also did not experience that. I actually experienced a little hit in my energy levels, nothing major. I still kept up workouts, kept up a pretty high activity level, but I just didn't feel quite as motivated, didn't feel as strong, didn't feel as energized, but just a little bit. So obviously not thrilled about that, so I rated that a 1. So then I got some body composition data, and this was also very surprising to me. So I did not start at an unhealthy weight. I started at a very good weight. I was very strong, very athletic. Started at 148.9. My height is 5'6", by the way. And I finished today weighed at 135, which is not even the lowest weight that I've seen in the past 6 weeks. But that's a total weight loss of about 14 pounds in 6 weeks, which is crazy. Not unhappy with it. I rated that kind of a 7 out of 10 because it's cool to lose weight and be able to manipulate your body weight so fast. But losing that much weight that fast made everything in the gym feel pretty heavy. I also have some measurements, and truthfully, I didn't take these measurements right at the start of this experiment. These measurements are from like late last year. So they're not quite as accurate as everything else, but it's what I've got. So waist went down 4 inches, which is a lot. And then hips went down 2.5 inches, which again, also a lot. So very surprising to me. That's just, a lot to lose very quickly, but I was happy with that. 10 out of 10. Yay. Okay. So that all looks great so far, right? Like super cool. But okay, now let's look at the blood numbers. This is where things get pretty interesting. So now we're at fasting glucose. That's still in the normal range. It went up a little bit, but like that's not something I'd be worried about. It stayed in the healthy range, well below diabetes or pre-diabetes levels. So that's great. Happy with that. Fasting insulin was at a 1.8. It actually took a very slight hit down to 1.4. Again, still in like a good range. Still happy with that. 10 out of 10. Triglycerides. Started at 40, end at 42. Still in a great range. Still totally fine. Very little change there. And then HDL, the good cholesterol, started at 72, went to 70. -2, okay. Still about the same. So all these results are great results. Yay, so happy. Well, let's take a look at cholesterol. So I would have expected one of these things to happen. I would have thought, okay, I've been eating a lot of saturated fat, so my cholesterol is probably going to go up somewhat. Or I've lost a lot of weight, which is associated with a decrease in cholesterol, so my cholesterol might actually go down, my LDL, specifically my LDL, the bad cholesterol. Or maybe those two effects will cancel each other out, and it won't change at all. But what I didn't expect was for my LDL cholesterol to literally double. So it went from 110 to 221, which is an insane jump, I thought. Insane. And then, of course, total cholesterol also went up quite a bit from 194 to 305. So I'm not surprised that they went up, but I am surprised at the magnitude by which it went up. Now, don't have a heart attack or worry that I'm going to have a heart attack. I definitely thought for a second, I was like, oh my gosh, am I a ticking time bomb? Like, am I going to have a heart attack at any second? So I turned to the internet. I had to find out if this was normal, and I found this article about elevated LDL cholesterol in people with a lot of lean mass during a carbohydrate restricted diet, which obviously this diet was very carbohydrate restricted. And I learned a lot from reading this article. And I did actually read the whole thing through twice, not just the abstract. So this study, it's not a systematic analysis or a meta review or even a randomized control trial. It's just a bunch of statistical analysis of previously collected data from this really, really big survey that they sent out to like 600 people. So anyways, what they found though from all of this survey data, looking at people's BMIs and their cholesterol and all of this stuff, was that BMI was inversely associated with LDL change, which means that the higher your BMI when you start, the less your LDL cholesterol increased upon starting a low-carb diet. And people with BMIs under 25 seem to experience the greatest LDL increases. And some of the people in the study were getting up into like the 600s, which made mine look pretty good. And you can also see why I'm not like super concerned about this. Like once they reintroduced carbs, their LDL went back down. And they're not even really sure if high LDL is associated with heart disease in this case, since their triglycerides were so low and their HDL was so high. Interestingly, looking at the numbers of people with BMIs above 25, there was still an LDL cholesterol increase of around 59, but some of them showed a decreased LDL. So it seems like everybody's responding very differently based on where they started in terms of BMI and overall health. So all these people that experienced super high spikes in their LDL went to see their doctors, and the doctors prescribed them statins. They said no thank you on the statins. They decided to just do it via nutrition. They reintroduced, I think it was 50 to 100 grams of carbs, and their LDL cholesterol went back down. This article also brought up the influence of social media on this type of eating. And so, of course, I went to Facebook, and I found this Facebook group for this phenotype called Lean Mass Hyper Responders. And, of course, obviously I joined. And it's full of people that are on, like, keto or low-carb diets that all have sky-high cholesterols and don't seem to care about it at all, which is crazy. I then found this guy who's like a PhD at some school, tiniest man I've ever seen. He's on a very low-carb diet, and he did the craziest experiment I've ever seen. It was so cool. He eats like carnivore or something, and he had a cholesterol that was really, really high, and he wanted to compare using Oreo cookies to lower it versus statins. So he ate his normal carnivore or keto diet and introduced 12 Oreo cookies a day, and over the course of 16 days, his cholesterol went from 384 to 111, his LDL, I should say specifically. Wild. Okay, so then he went back on his keto diet. He cranked his cholesterol back up to 421 and then went on statin therapy for 6 weeks, and it only lowered it to 284, it looks like. That's crazy. This just came out like a couple months ago, this video and study. And yeah, it's only a case study. It doesn't apply to most people. I don't think, if you have morbid obesity, I don't think you're going to get your LDL to go down by eating Oreo cookies. But you might if you have a low BMI. Okay, so what does all this mean? In reality, nothing, because I'm not interested in continuing this diet. If I were interested in continuing it, I don't think I'd let the LDL thing scare me, but this diet kind of sucked. It wasn't very fun, and it took a small hit in my energy levels, so there's no reason to keep going with it. If I had to guess, I'd say a lot of people think this diet gives them more energy and better sleep because they're coming from a place of not very good health and obesity, and once they cut out sugar, all of the other stuff gets better. But I'm so glad I did this. I feel like I learned so much from it about myself. I learned a lot about cholesterol, and I just think that this stuff is so cool and so interesting. And I'm planning on repeating this experiment whenever I get bored, but not carnivore. I'm just going to keep the calories the same and change the macros and see if I get the same body composition results. Because those were really cool, but I don't think that they were specifically because of the carnivore thing. I think it was because of the calorie deficit. The biggest thing I learned too, if you want to be super successful with something, post on social media, because then it's impossible to cheat on it. Just tell people about it. So anyways, I'll be starting my carbohydrate therapy tomorrow. Thank you, Melanie. And I'm sure my LDL is going to come right back down, and I'm super excited. Thank you guys if you've been watching this. I really appreciate it. I hope that this was as interesting for you as it was for me.